DS9 is popping off once more, especially since it's set in a parallel world. It's arguably one of the best things to come out of the Star Trek universe. On the other hand, we've got Admiral Janeway getting Starfleet's newest ship, the USS Dauntless, with a quantum slipstream drive. Let's look at how Deep Space Nine pulls it off and talk about the new ship, starting with Deep Space Nine. Stuck between the perfection that Star Trek The Next Generation brings and Star Trek Voyager's charm, Deep Space Nine started at a considerable disadvantage. The show is nothing like previous shows or films from the franchise. Instead, it's more like A la carte, the Cold War novel, or The Americans in Space. It talks about religious fundamentalism, newfound faith, and racial tension. It may just be the most innovative piece of content to come out of the mainstream science fiction in a long time. The gist is that Cardasia, a race full of militants, has taken over a scrappy but spiritual planet called Bajor. Right next to the planet is a space station called Terok Nor, which is then renamed to Deep Space Nine as the planet asks for the Federation's help to avoid a future invasion. One of the commanders from Starfleet, Benjamin Sisko, is in charge of the station. As soon as he comes over, a wormhole opens up between the planet and the Gamma Quadrant, making Bajor strategically vital. There's more. The planet's gods, called the Prophets, live inside that wormhole, and Sisko becomes their emissary. Moreover, the characters. Nana Visitor, who plays the brilliant yet fiery liaison officer from Bajor, later assigned to Deep Space Nine, Kira Nerys says that the show looked forward and stood up. She thinks that's precisely why people come back to it, since they are surprised that even in the future, people are going through the same things. We've got Colm Meaney playing Miles O'Brien, a friendly Irish transporter in Next Gen. As soon as he shows up, he's one of the show's best characters. Julian Basher, played by Alexander Siddig, is an FET medical officer who's super arrogant. But as his friendship with the ominous Cardassian Taylor, Garrick, played by Andrew Robinson, unfolds, viewers are taken to genuinely beautiful places. Additionally, we get to meet Terry Farrell's character Dax as well. The character is a trill that could give Doctor Who a run for its money. There's also Odo, played by the late Rene Auberjonois. He is a shapeshifter whose origins become a huge plot point later on, but he's also the chief of security at the station. Odo has a nemesis though, Quark, who Armin Shimerman, a Ferengi bartender, plays. Since the franchise shows humans as possible capitalist idealists, the Ferengi are complex and disturbing, looking into a society based only on money. Furthermore, good writing. Good writing makes good acting. The cast tells fans to watch the show for the writing. Many people wrote the show off because they thought it was only about ships in space, which it does have. But the show is much more about social issues and philosophical discussion. The show hits home now because, much like our own, it's set in a bifurcated world. It's not about solving the entire world's problem in a single episode anymore, but instead it's about how people who can't stand each other learn to live together because they have to. They have to form alliances to survive and get through life. Admittedly, a lot of viewers were thrown off at the start. The first season goes around the same way any Star Trek show does, but right around the season's end, it shows its true self, diving into much darker and deeper philosophical takes. It's even possible to finish some episodes and feel physically winded by how deep they dive into the philosophical aspect of everything. The showrunners brilliantly put in impending plot lines well before they take place and end up pulling some severe twists. Right at the center of it, Sisko, a black Starfleet captain and a single father stationed between racial tensions. Throughout the show's run, we see him turn into as great of a captain as Jean-Luc Picard in his prime, bringing about an excellent arc for the character. Lastly, a sense of place. More than any other show from the franchise, Deep Space Nine has a sense of place. Fans are left to crave the promenade, miss the turbo lift as it hisses, and desperately wait to enter Sisko's office once more as he greets us, tossing a baseball in the air. We've got a chance to come back to this world with a new comic series showing some of the key characters from the show. Moreover, the animated show, The Lower Decks, is set 5 years after Deep Space Nine's finale and shows Kira and Quark again. According to Visitor, her character Kira is just off stage left for her. Hearing about what the character meant to other people over the years as she tells us what she means to her makes the actor feel fresh and alive in her head. The Visitor, again, urged people to watch the show and said that in a franchise all about traveling and exploring other worlds, they found a way to wait a minute and get into details. As she gestured from her head to her heart, she said that the journey from the head to the heart is where it truly lies, and we should focus on that. how Janeway's new Star Trek ship compares to Voyager. Coming up, more on the ship. It seems like Star Trek Prodigy gave Admiral Karen Janeway a new ship league ahead of her older one, the USS Voyager, and possibly better than the USS Protostar 2. The Admiral has finally arrived as part of the Delta Quadrant and is now in command of the USS Dauntless, a new class of starship that's much more powerful. The character is now searching for the USS Protostar, which she thinks is still under the command of her closest friend, Captain Chakotay. Little does she know that its new crew is made up of a pack of 6 teenage alien rebels who aim at joining the Starfleet. The USS Dauntless is the first of its kind, a Dauntless-class starship with a quantum slipstream drive. Another inspires the ship that the captain came across in Star Trek, Voyager, which goes by the same name. The original Dauntless disguised itself as a Federation vessel, but was instead an alien starship. Janeway and everyone on board the USS Voyager were captured by the ship and by Arturis, a member of Species 116, who was given the order to bring them into Borg space. While the heroes foiled Arturis' plans, they were still very intrigued by the quantum slipstream drive on the ship that could, in theory, make the time it took to get back to Earth much shorter. The character's crew managed to build their version of it, but failed to make it function reliably. Moving on to how Prodigy's Dauntless compares to Voyager. When the USS Voyager came out in 2371, it was a top-of-the-line Intrepid-class starship, but by the period that Prodigy is set in 2383, the ship has been decommissioned for a while after the captain got it back to Earth. Though the Voyager was far from the same ship when it was decommissioned, during the 7 years that the captain and her crew spent with the Delta Quadrant mandatory Voyager, it went through several upgrades and was even retrofitted multiple times, along with Borg technology and their attempts at replicating a quantum slipstream drive from the Dauntless. But it looks like the Admiral's ship is now better than the Voyager in almost every way imaginable. Not only is it brand new and equipped with a quantum slipstream drive that works, making it the fastest ship in the show, but it's also much more potent than the Voyager. Though as of yet, we don't have any information on the specs and crew that will be on the Dauntless, the Delta Quadrant wouldn't send anyone that isn't the best they can offer on a dangerous rescue mission. That's where the Admiral comes in. Finally, how does Prodigy's Dauntless compares to the Protostar? USS Protostar is an experimental ship with 2 warped cores and its proto-drive that allows the ship to go far beyond maximum warp. While as of right now, we don't know whether this proto-drive makes it faster than Dauntless's slipstream drive, Star Trek Prodigy dropped a mid-season trailer that shows both ships racing against each other to see which is faster as the Admiral finally encounters the Protostar. Considering that the Protostar is much smaller than Starfleet's 24th century standards, it's doubtful that it can be used for deep space exploration. On the other hand, Dauntless is a much larger ship and can easily handle multi-year voyages. Moreover, because the Protostar's inexperienced crew, it might be fully outmatched by Dauntless, but the Admiral may not get the ship as quickly as she thinks. And little do they know there's a weapon hidden on the Protostar that could cause Federation technology to turn on itself. Could the Dauntless end up destroying itself if the Admiral ends up finally intercepting it? That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on Deep Space Nine? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.